Let me ask you something, and I want you to be really honest with yourself here. You get your paycheck, it hits your account, and for about 48 hours, you feel good. You pay a bill, grab a nice dinner, tell yourself you'll start saving next month. And then, without really knowing where it went, it's almost gone, and you're back to waiting. Sound familiar? Here's the uncomfortable part. That's not a money problem. That's a thinking problem. And until you fix the thinking, the money will never fix itself. I don't care how many raises you get. If you want more psychology-based insights on money, investing, and wealth building, make sure to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Because today, we're going inside the minds of wealthy people. Not the Instagram lifestyle, not the highlight reel, the actual psychology, the research, the way wealthy people process money at a completely different level than most of us were ever taught. And I want to warn you, some of this is going to challenge things you've believed your entire life. Let's go. Here's the thing most people miss. When we talk about rich people, we immediately think it's about the money itself, the investments, the portfolios, the real estate deals. But financial psychologist Dr. Brad Klontz, a professor, a certified financial planner, and fellow of the American Psychological Association, has spent over 20 years studying wealthy Americans. And his core finding? The biggest wealth gap in North America is not a money gap. It is a thinking gap. Let that land for a second, because that means the barrier between where you are and where you want to be isn't sitting in your bank account. It's sitting between your ears. Klontz's research shows that most of our financial behavior, not some of it, most of it, is driven by what he calls money scripts, unconscious beliefs about money that were formed in childhood, the things your parents said at the dinner table, the financial stress you watched them carry, the messages you absorbed before you even understood what a dollar bill was. And here's the part that should stop you cold. You are likely still running on those same scripts today, making adult financial decisions based on a child's understanding of the world. The wealthy didn't escape this either. But at some point, they rewrote the script. And that rewrite is exactly what we're going to break down today. Now look, the single most fundamental difference in how rich people think sounds almost too simple. But stay with me because the implications run very deep. The average person sees money as a goal. The wealthy person sees money as a tool. That's it. That's the core. But watch what happens when you follow that logic all the way through. When money is your goal, every single decision gets filtered through fear. Fear of losing it, fear of not having enough, fear of going back to zero. And that fear, that emotional static, causes you to make terrible decisions. You sit on $20,000 in a savings account earning 1.2% while inflation quietly destroys it at 3% a year. Here's what most people don't realize. That's not playing it safe. That is losing roughly $360 every single year. Not in a crash, not in a bad investment, just sitting there, doing nothing. When money is a tool, the psychology flips completely. You stop asking, how do I keep this, and start asking, how do I deploy this? You think like a contractor who looks at raw materials and sees what can be built. The money is the material. Your thinking is the blueprint. Steve Siebold spent 25 years, literally a quarter century, interviewing hundreds of North American millionaires for his book, How Rich People Think. And one of his most consistent findings was this. The wealthy don't wake up asking, how do I earn more today? They ask, how do I build systems that deliver value while I sleep? That is the shift from an income mindset to an asset mindset. Income has a ceiling. There are only so many hours in a day. Assets don't have a ceiling. And here's the math that makes it real. Two people, both earning $80,000 a year in Canada. Person A saves $8,000 in a savings account. Over 20 years at 1.5% interest, roughly $200,000. Solid, not nothing. Person B invests that same $8,000 annually into a diversified index fund at 8%, the S&P 500's historical average. 20 years later, nearly $400,000. Same income, same savings amount, double the outcome. The only difference is understanding how money compounds versus how it just sits. This is where it gets interesting, because that gap isn't just about tactics or investment choices. It's about how wealthy people experience time differently than everyone else. Wealthy people live in the future, not in a dreamy, disconnected way, in a precise, calculated way. Psychologists call it long-term orientation, and it is one of the strongest predictors of financial success ever studied. The average person's financial horizon is 3 to 6 months. What's the next bill? What's happening this Christmas? Can I afford this vacation? The wealthy person's horizon is 10, 20, 30 years. They make decisions today based on who they're trying to be in 2045. And because their eyes are locked on that distant target, short-term discomfort doesn't shake them. The market drops 20%? That's a sale. A deal falls through? Next. A business has a bad quarter? That's data, not a disaster. Morgan Housel, author of The Psychology of Money, one of the best-selling finance books in North American history, said it perfectly. The ability to stay patient through uncertainty without panic is the single most valuable financial skill in existence, and you cannot learn it in a spreadsheet. It is a psychological muscle, and most people never build it because nobody told them it needed building. Here's a metaphor that might land for you. Most people manage their money like they're driving while staring at the hood of the car. They can only see what's directly in front of them. Wealthy people are looking a quarter mile down the road. Same road, completely different outcomes. Now let's talk about self-belief, because this is where the research genuinely surprised me. When scientists studied ultra-wealthy North Americans, people with $10 million or more in net worth, they weren't searching for IQ scores or family pedigree. They were looking for the one consistent psychological trait across all of them. And it wasn't education level. It wasn't where they grew up. It wasn't who they knew. It was extreme self-confidence. Specifically, a deep and stable belief that their actions drive their outcomes. What psychologists call a high internal locus of control. The belief that you, not luck, not the economy, not your boss, not your circumstances, are the primary force shaping your financial life. Now look, Clance's research is direct on this. People who believe their financial situation is controlled by external forces are almost always financially stuck. Not because those external forces aren't real, sometimes they absolutely are. But the belief itself causes passivity. Why start the business if you might fail? Why invest if the market is unpredictable? Why even try if the game feels rigged? That internal narrative, playing out silently every single day in decisions you don't even realize you're making, is either building your wealth or destroying it. There is no neutral setting. And here's the thing that separates the wealthy from everyone else. They feel fear too. Siebold's interviews made that unmistakably clear. The difference is they act despite the fear, not in the absence of it. The average person waits to feel ready before moving. The wealthy person moves and builds readiness from the result. So let's talk about what you actually do with all of this. Because ideas without action are just entertainment. And I didn't make this video to entertain you. I made it to change how you think. Start here. Before you touch a single investment account, before you read another book on wealth, before you do anything else, sit down this week and honestly answer 3 questions. What did money mean in your household growing up? What did you hear adults say about wealthy people? And what do you actually believe deep down about whether you deserve financial success? Write those answers down. Seriously, because you cannot rewrite a script you haven't read. Clance's clinical research shows that people who surface and confront these beliefs make measurably better financial decisions within months of doing so. That is not motivational fluff. That is published psychology research. The inner work comes first, always. Now, once you've done that, here's the thing. You need to change the question you ask yourself every morning. Most people wake up and think, how do I make more money today? That question has a ceiling. There are only so many hours. Stop asking it. Replace it with this. How do I build something that generates value without requiring all of my hours? That single shift in your daily thinking is the line between an income mindset and an asset mindset. And the math makes it undeniable. $200 a month invested at 8% becomes over $175,000 in 25 years. You didn't work harder. You didn't earn more. You just stopped letting the money sit there and started letting it move. Pick one asset-building action this month and start it. Not when you have more information. Not when the timing feels right. Now. Here's what most people don't realize, though. You can do all of that and still quietly sabotage yourself with the words you use every single day. There is one phrase I want you to retire permanently. And that phrase is, I can't afford that. Now look, I'm not telling you to go spend money you don't have. That's not the point. The point is that I can't afford it is a full stop. The moment those words form in your mind, your brain stops looking for solutions. It shuts down. Replace it every single time with, how could I afford that? That's a question, and questions keep your brain in problem-solving mode. Klantz's research shows this one language shift alone produces a measurably different psychological state, one that generates action instead of resignation. Try it for 30 days. Watch what changes. And while you're doing all of that, start running your financial decisions through a different time horizon. Take whatever decision is sitting on your back burner right now, the investment account, the TFSA contribution, the business idea you've been circling for 6 months. Run the math forward 10 years instead of 10 weeks. When you can actually see $55,000 on the other side of a $300 a month decision, the short-term discomfort stops feeling like sacrifice. It feels like a trade. And wealthy people are exceptional at making that mental shift. They see the 10-year version of every decision, while most people are only looking at this month's bank statement. And this is the one that ties everything together. Get specific about what you're actually building toward. Not a number, a life. Because here's what most people never stop to realize. Kahneman's Nobel-backed research found that beyond roughly $110,000 a year in today's North American terms, more income produces almost no increase in day-to-day emotional well-being. Almost none. What does produce sustained happiness? Is autonomy. The freedom to control your time, your choices, your energy. So stop chasing a vague desire to be rich. Instead, ask yourself, what does financial freedom actually look like for me on a regular Tuesday afternoon? What time do you wake up? What do you say no to? What work do you do because you genuinely love it, not because you need the paycheck? Write that picture down. Put a real number on it. Because a specific, personally meaningful target is infinitely more powerful than a number you picked, because it sounds impressive. The research backs that up completely. And so does every wealthy person who has figured out that the point was never the money. It was always what the money makes possible. Here's the truth, and I want you to actually sit with this for a moment. The gap between where you are financially right now and where you want to be is not primarily a money gap. It is a thinking gap. And unlike capital or connections or luck, a thinking gap is something you can close. Not someday, this week. With the decisions you make in the next 7 days, the mind that builds wealth is learnable. Every single piece of research we covered today points to that exact conclusion. Klontz proved it. Siebold documented it across 25 years of interviews. Kahneman put a Nobel Prize behind it. The thinking comes first. The money follows the thinking. So the only question left is whether you're ready to start thinking differently. Drop in the comments which part of this video hit you the hardest. I genuinely read every single one. Subscribe if you're not already because we go this deep every single week. And I'll see you in the next one.